Just a disclaimer at the start before we get into anything. So Alexis and I especially, and Valerie in a different way, are not healthcare professionals. So this is a topic that we understand will have all sorts of really interesting and very deep kind of reactions from people. So if there's anything that you want to talk further about today, or you need to seek help, we'll include some links in the chat as well. But just be aware we're not healthcare professionals, so always seek professional help and support from an appropriate local organisation. Why can't Cassie and Alexis hear me? Something about the US as well. We'll try and sort it out as we go. So I'll drop all the links into the chat as well. But yeah, we're talking from our personal perspective, so hopefully that's useful as well as we go. Let's hope that everyone can introduce themselves and go from there. Okay, Alexis is going to join us as well. Valerie, whilst we wait for Alexis, do you want to introduce yourself and like why are you here today? What's your perspective that you're bringing to things?
Well, my name is Dr. Valerie Colón. This is a PhD, and as Kit said, it is not an MD, so please do advise and take your clues from those licensed professionals in your community. I am here because I am a neurodiversity champion of sorts. I am neurodiverse myself. I have dyscalculia. It does impact my daily, but not as much as you would think. But I believe in a world where we are all accepted and embraced for who we are. And I'll take it one step further to say that I believe diversity, neurodiversity specifically, is a critical aspect of innovation and how we expand our community technologically and just socially. So I will talk more about that later, but I'll pass over intros to whoever would like to go next. Alexis?
I think she's still restarting. So this is
Is she restarting?
we'll
All
work where
right.
we can with things. Oh, there she is. Alexis, can you hear me, us now?
I think we should sing it out. Alexis, can you hear me? It's your turn to introduce yourself.
I can hear you. Woo-hoo. I was talking on mute. There's that. I'm there for that. Morgan. So cute. Okay. I think what I was asked to do was introduce myself. So Alexis Williams. I am at Atlassian. I've been here for about 3.5 years. I run our global partnership with Accenture, which is how Kit and I got plugged in, and then now how I'm plugged into all of you, and just really excited to be here. And also thank you to the others co-hosting today, Valerie and Amanda. Really excited.
Awesome. And I can hear you as well, Alexis, which is always good as the start. And last me, we meant Alexis to lead the section when we were planning things. There we go. So my name's Kit Friend. So I'm here from you in Brisbane, Australia. Lovely to see some local folks and faces from this week with me as well on the call. So I'm part of the partnership team working with Alexis, Accenture and Atlassian, and this is a topic really near and dear to me. So like Valerie, I've got dyscalculia and dyslexia, and I'm bipolar. So like I hit every box on like our categories here. And Alexis and I were really passionate about opening up this topic as a key part of the Teamwork Foundations kind of area that's brewing at Atlassian as part of things this year. And when I saw teamwork, I was like, think about the whole of the team. And so this felt like a really great opportunity. And this is our very first outing in like working out what we do in this space. So be gentle, but give us inputs. And we're really interested in how this could become a series of discussions and do all sorts of interesting things around it as well. Now, if I go back to our agenda of things for the day to keep us on track, now that we're all able to hear each other a little bit as well. So we're doing this right at the end of Mental Health Awareness Month. And Alexis, you found a really great parallel for why to have this particular discussion as part of that topic, right?
Yes, I don't know if everyone is aware. Supporting each other is really the theme of this year's Mental Health Awareness Month campaign, and to me, that's really important. So I didn't really introduce, my background from a mental health perspective, but I have, severe panic and anxiety, and so it's always been really important to me. And being able to show up for each other is not always easy, but it's critical. And so I found this year's theme really important, and I wanted to take advantage of what the theme was this year. And fortunately, I have some great colleagues who are also very passionate about this topic. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has had experiences along the month with mental health awareness and neurodiversity, but it certainly is super critical, especially in the day-to-day when you're working with people, you're spending 40, 50 hours with them every single week. It's important that we show up for each other. So I really resonated with the theme.
Very good indeed. And we're going to jump through a whole bunch of sections, but one of the things we were really keen to do today is give you some input on what we talk about. So we'll do the classic kind of Q&A at the end, but on our Mentimeter, which I'll try and bring up now, we'll see whether it plays nicely. It's not going to play nicely for me right now, I fear. 2 seconds. What we're going to ask you to do is actually input on the topics we talk around. So if I just bring up my screen share here. This is really irritating as it keeps jumping out of. There we go. Hopefully you can see things there. So you'll see a QR code at the bottom and a Menti code at the top. So you can go to menti.com and use the code, or I'll type the chat in. And we went through with some of our AI companions and prioritized 10 questions that we thought would be kind of vaguely interesting as starters for us all. So whilst we begin the next section, if you want to vote and rank those and drag the ones up to the top, we'll use that as our agenda for the discussion. It looks like the screen share is working now, so that should be good as well. So we'll keep that going in on the background. So please give us your inputs on the topics you'd like us to run through. Whilst you're doing that, though, we thought we'd kick things off with a little bit of an Atlassian kind of reference with things. So you might be aware that there's a wonderful thing called the Atlassian Team Playbook that contains all sorts of awesome advice and practices that you can bring into your teams. And we thought it'd be really interesting to see from our panel of hosts today what plays people thought were interesting with this in mind. So like, what did you bring into teams that might really help with this? So Alexis, you were the suggester and very keen on this.
Yeah.
What play do you find really useful for teams?
One of my favorite plays is actually called Dirty Laundry. So I personally find that when I have a lot of unresolved tension or conflict or just straight up dirty laundry that I need to air and I don't have the opportunity or the space to do that, like the morale all of a sudden just does that and it tanks. And so I use the dirty laundry dirty laundry playbook at work to really just give like somewhat of a venting session. I mean, I do find it seriously helpful. Participants are able to express like their frustrations and their challenges and concerns. And it gets it out in a safe space because I don't know how to like gracefully put this. Sometimes we all just need to like word vomit, and you can have boundary with that. But I found that with my teams, we're in a world where change is constant, and especially at Atlassian, we embrace that change even more. So we've got change on top of change, and so for folks to be able to have the space to do that venting and to feel okay about it. I've always found after those sessions, I immediately find a correlation because we do these things called tip surveys, which are basically like employee engagement and satisfaction. Like it tends to rise because folks just feel like sometimes you just need to like let it out, and that's okay. And so that is my favorite team playbook that I've run thus far.
I love it. And for those of us that haven't used the play, what's the super quick summary of the play? Like, what do you do when you're doing the dirty laundry?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like time limited venting, let's be clear. But we also keep it pretty solution focused so that we also are not just talking about the problems, we're talking about how we solve for them. And so that gives folks, I think, that element of like trying to change and action it. And then there's sort of documentation. So I think, generally what I found 60 minutes, you can go from 2 to 15 people across those 60 minutes, and you just start off by really thanking the team for their honesty and encouraging them that it's like a very safe space for sharing, and do a little icebreaker. I always find that icebreakers are pretty critical to get people talking and feeling comfortable. So I think you just go like kind of round robin and discuss the challenges as a team and decide which ones you'll target for resolution, because not all of them need a resolution. Some of them just need to be vented and we throw them to the floor and they're done.
I love it. My parents worked at the BBC. My mum was my dad's boss, in fact, which was interesting back in the day. But so they worked at the BBC graphic design department in the UK, and they used to have a screen bag where you could just go and yell into it that was well insulated. I feel that relates. I can relate that to your dirty laundry exercise. Now, Valerie, actually, seeing the voting, I think we should do your play last because it's really
Let's do
relevant
it
for the top
last.
quiz. So I'm going to jump. I was going to say you next, but actually I think the segue is too good around things. So my favorite play, I will drop the thing in as well, is something called My User Manual. And in that wonderful way that you don't apply your own advice to your team, I'm actually going to run this belatedly for my team in the next week or two at Accenture with things. But the reason I love the user manual is it gives you a kind of prompt to declare like what people should know about you, like how they should work with you effectively. And it's basically what it says in that there's a template, and you can do this on Confluence or like on sticky notes, like wherever works for you. And you're basically creating a guide for like, hi team, here's how to work with me effectively. Maybe not use you effectively because that feels a bit blunt, but like how to work with you effectively as a person. And I found that in a welcoming context, like including my neurodiversity as part of that brief really helps me with teams. So I think I did this with Alexis, but I definitely do with the rest of the team. I'll often share my diagnostic with people and say, look, here's what dyslexia and dyscalculia mean in particular. Like, here's what you'll find goes really well for me because of those things. Here's the stuff not to give me, or we'll both have a bad time around things there. And so that's part of my user manual as well. And maybe later on in the discussion, it'd be great to hear what else people would like to put in their user manuals. But yeah, that's my favorite play. So I've put the link in the chat. Oh no, the sound's not away from here as well. But Valerie, seeing what's ranked next, let's do your play first, and then we'll reveal the results of the poll for anyone that's not watching on things, and we'll see why I picked you as last.
I just want to take a moment to also introduce Amelia. Amelia is a support animal. She's cute and adorable. If she sits up straight, maybe you'll see her face. There she is. So in addition to dyscalculia, I also have PTSD from my military service. And it is a work-related issue that is never ending. It's chronic. It will never go away per se, is what people do, what I hear. And that creates a very interesting environment in order to work around. And I do work from home, but the characteristics, as Kit was saying, carry over of how you work with Kit and his explainer. It explains not both how you work with him in person, but also virtually. And sometimes we think these are only things that happen in interpersonal interactions in person, and it's not. There's also in person and virtual, if that makes sense. So one of my favorite plays is the play of belonging. So not only just saying, hey, I acknowledge that we all have various different characteristics, but also saying, and taking that step to say, I appreciate your differences. You belong here. You not only belong here, but you also present a sense of value. Like, we need the skills that you bring to level us up, to bring us to the next level. It's not something that you just have to overcome. We have such a negative dialogue when it comes, and we make a lot of, and when I say we, me too, make a lot of assumptions off of people and what different words mean and how it is working with them. And the sense of belonging, this belonging play, has 3 elements, and I am cheating. I have it on my second screen. It's a user manual of what it looks like, acknowledging people and their various different styles of engagement, having inclusive meetings, meaning this has various different forms of what it looks like. It means maybe having the meeting at a different time of day instead of always having it at the standard 9 a.m. So it can look like various different things. And then learning circles. And it has learning circles as having like a collaboration, thinking about how we're all connected, but also acknowledging that various people learn in various different ways. So I'll talk more about that and what that looks like a little bit later. And they're back to you, Kit.
I love it. And the reason I selected that is, let's see if I can jump over to Mentimeter as well. So the thing that you all wanted to talk about most was, what does belonging look like at work in real everyday terms? So the connection is really strong, and really, really interesting to hear like how impactful that is to you, Valerie. Maybe let's jump to Alexis, then we can come back and drift into your wider belonging stuff. Like, what does this feel like for you, Alexis? And like, I see you work in a company that feels quite open to these kind of principles and ways.
Yeah, no, I love this question. And of course, everyone's opinion is unique, and we all have our own way that makes us feel like we belong. For me, I once heard a quote that was around like, diversity is being invited to the dance, and inclusion or belonging is actually being asked to dance at the dance, right? And so for me, I tend to, like, as someone with high anxiety, I internalize a lot. And so that kind of brought me into an introverted sort of, just that's just sort of who I am, as this introverted person, but yet I do get a lot of energy from being extroverted and talking to people. And so, like, I'm this weird mix of an extroverted introvert. And so I can be sitting in a meeting and I can be not talking and I'm thinking. And if I'm asked to use my voice, like, that makes me feel like I belong, right? Because a lot of times, again, going back to the dance reference, you can be on the periphery of being included, but you're not necessarily a voice in that. And so I always appreciate, and I've learned throughout the years to just go ahead and speak up and to use my voice. I've just learned that that's something that I need to do, and to, you know, step outside of the uncomfortable. But when I see people ask me if I am a little quiet, like, what do you think? That makes me feel like I really belong, and that is an environment that is encouraging diverse perspectives, even from folks who maybe be on the quieter side. So to me, that's what belonging feels like, is that, like, inclusion piece, and not just being at the dance, but being asked to dance.
I love it. Really, really great to all those things. And Valerie, back to you. What brings belonging in? Like, what teams have you belonged in?
So I belong to a myriad of communities out there in this world of ours, and my favorite ones are belonging to communities that no one thinks I'm in. That is breaks the stereotypes that exist out there. So I'm a big builder. I build things not just only in the virtual space, but in the physical space as well. And I like to shock people in all the various different profiles that I have, and what belonging means to people. There's a book called Your Love Languages, and they did a version about your love languages at work and what that means. And so what a fun exercise that I do in those accepting communities is do this framework with other people and see what gives you, what makes you feel loved or appreciated, because sometimes people are uncomfortable with this word love, but what makes you feel appreciated at work. And instead of me giving other people what I think they need, I hear from people on how they want to be appreciated, and I try to do that. One of the examples that I often use about what belonging means in technology, in a technology atmosphere, is the team I work with on a daily basis. We're very neurodiverse, and I feel in technology, in the tech industry, we have a very high concentration of the neurodiverse, and we rarely ever acknowledge them, let alone use and leverage that neurodiversity. So I work on a team where we have a business analyst who has ADHD, and his mind is always moving fast. He's in a great position at work because I need his mind to work very quickly, to hop from project, and bring us back information, kind of like your intel, so that we can leverage that. And we have a developer / architect who is on the spectrum. And she is amazing because she will fixate on that one thing and go really deep with it. And we need her in that architectural position, because then she could go deep into, like, one example is I talk a lot about AI. I share that with Kit, and I will tell her about this one completely obscure tool or function, and she will come back to me with a full analysis on how to use it, what to do with it, how I could push this technology to the limit. So to me, it's not just acknowledging that my coworkers are neurodiverse, but putting them in positions where they get to truly shine, because we're seeing their experience from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Super powerful stuff. Yeah, really, really interesting. And it's been a fun one talking about this journey. Let's say, like, in my head and Accenture, we sort of smoosh together mental health and neurodiversity quite a lot of the time. It was really interesting starting to plan this series, that, like, how, like, sometimes a lot of people do that, sometimes they're really separate, and it's interesting to hear both reflected in your experience, Valerie. Yeah. I guess from my perspective, like belonging at work could be really interesting. And I left the UK for Australia September 22, and I had a really good team in the UK, and I felt very welcomed and included there. And it was a real anxiety point for me around like whether I'd find that again. And I'm now in a team with, I can see some of the people like Daniel on the call as well. And actually, I think our sense of togetherness in our team in Australia is really unique and stronger than anything else I've had. And it's really interesting, like it's little things like the way we verbalize practices. So I'll often say, like, some of our colleagues, they'll always verbalize when they're leaving for the day, when it's like nice and early, just to sort of provide that sense of okayness around things and normalize that, like, hey, we're balancing the day, we're doing things there, we welcome people in. And I found that really important, that sort of display of communication and principles. Okay, I'm keen to try and tackle some of the others in our backlog that we've got here. So the next one, we've got, what's the most common mistake teams make when aiming for neuro inclusion? You're trying to do your best, you're trying to welcome everyone around things there, but something doesn't go quite right. Let's go, Valerie, first of all. You can bring the science in, and then maybe we'll get Alexis.
So I think the challenge that people have when creating any kind of inclusive environment is leaning too hard on, I'm going to use the term, it might like some people, is stereotyping. So we have prejudice, bias, stereotypes, and they are natural. And sometimes we hear those words and we get triggered of like, oh, bias, bad. No, we have to acknowledge everybody has their bias. I have their bias. And sometimes when we have these conversations, that they can be difficult to talk about because people make very strong generalizations. And then it's okay to make generalization. It's okay to talk about what's common, what happens often. But the things that I like about the toolkits that Alexis and that Kit talked about and picked in is they bring those generalizations back to the individual person and what those mean for those individual people. And then they change the conversation to not like every ADHD person or every person that's a spectrum or every bipolar person, which then perpetuates kind of these negative stereotypes. But then it brings it back to the person of like, I have PTSD and this is what this means to me. No, I don't jump at fireworks. I really don't. I actually enjoy fireworks quite a bit. So it's that we kind of tend to get wrong. But on this topic of neurodiversity, I encourage everybody to get it wrong as long as you're talking about it. Like, just talk about it because it's just not talked about enough.
Very. I want to give Alexis the last word maybe on some of these as we go through with things. Like, Alexis, what's your thought on this one?
Yeah, man, I definitely agree on the sort of generalization or like lack of individualization. I think sometimes too, like, these are the employees that are best suited to understand how we could support them. And so I don't necessarily see us always consulting them. And so that seems pretty basic. Like sometimes we just fail to do that. And then I think we also have a tendency to focus just on the accommodation side, right? Like, here's the things that we can provide for you. We can give you a quiet space. We can do this, we do that. And like, that's great. But at the end of the day, like, there still needs to be this feeling of belonging that is so fundamental to just how humans operate. And so I feel like the second piece of that is like, we do over index on the accommodations and not how that drives connectedness and belonging. And we should balance, and we should build with one of my favorite Atlassian the values is building with heart and balance. And I just feel like we don't have enough of that.
Never enough, right? I think what you said, and in fact what you both said that makes me think of things is like these labels that we all have at the moment. I'm always conscious they're quite transient, right? And they can be really, really broad. And I feel like dyslexia is a really good example of that in particular, although not the only one, in that like you can meet two people who are have a dyslexia diagnosis and their symptoms and how it impacts them wildly different. I have no issues with reading or anything there. Short-term memory, terrible. And like generally that seems to be quite common across things, but it's, and like, who knows whether that'll be called dyslexia still in 5 to 10 years, right? They could easily split things out and do things there. Okay, question number 3 like made me immediately think of someone I met, so I'm really interested whether it's the same for both of you. So question number 3 is, have you ever had to mask part of how your brain works at work? and what did you learn through that process? And I'll give you my example as it kind of jumped out with things. So I haven't felt this much with things, and I'm probably quite fortunate from that perspective. But I met someone in one of our UK teams, and he was in his like mid to late 40s, and he was very, very dyslexic, and he'd never told anyone. He'd never told anyone at work. He hadn't told his wife and family around things, and he was revealing he was spending like 2 hours extra every night just processing things because it impacted him so much around there. And we did like a little session like this with things, and he was like, oh my goodness, it's okay to like talk about it, and it was really important for him. And I found it amazing that someone had to be through that. So it really resonated with me, that question. Like but I guess from a personal angle, or anyone you know, like, has this ever happened to you? And maybe Alexis, we'll go first with you. Like, does it sound familiar?
Like having to mask things, I think is like what comes with anxiety is this sensitivity. And so if I get, and I see this with folks on my team, it's not just me. So if I know other folks, and I'm aware that other folks can tend to run anxious or like they have panic, I question if my responses to things are valid because I am so sensitive. Like if something at work feels wrong or it makes me angry, I'm like, well, do I have a right to be angry? And so more often than not, I err on, no, I don't. And so I'll just keep my mouth shut. I'm not going to say anything, but it could actually be like a very legit thing that I need to speak my mind on. And and that's where I try to, like, in a leadership role, encourage my team to do the same, as just speak your mind and be open, and like don't doubt yourself. So I just because you might be a sensitive person doesn't mean that you're not actually reading the situation right. And so there is a little bit of that calibration that I've always like, is the tooling, meaning my brain tooling, is it calibrated right? And so I've learned over the years to trust it a little bit more, even knowing that it might be like highly attuned, so to speak.
It's funny. I think that's true for all humans, right? But perhaps we're like used to be more aware or kind of questioning it. And someone recommended me a book called The Chimp Paradox, I think it is. It's definitely pseudoscience in a number of ways. I'll put the link in the chat. But it's a really good read. But one of the principles I liked when they talk about when not to let your inner chimp make the decisions, and I so related to it because it was like, don't make any decisions between like 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. because the chimp's in control around things. And I can so relate to what you're saying, Alexis, because sometimes when I work, I'm like, no, this is not a good time for me to make a decision. There's something else active in my head around things, and it's going to throw things off around stuff there. I'll put the link in the chat. Valerie, do you ever encounter masking or something?
Yeah, I mean, I identify with what Alexis says, because I do a lot of, throughout my life, I've done a lot of contextualizing to say, hey, is this normal? Like, what is normal? Like, and then I check, like I do a temperature check, and I'll like check with my inner circle and be like, okay, so this has happened. What would you think? And I only feel validated. Like I only feel like I have the right to feel a certain way, unless when there is someone else externally that is like, yeah, actually you should 110% do X, Y, and Z, because that's crazy. Like, why would that even happen? And I've let a lot of, like, reflecting back on my younger years, I let a lot of things go that I probably should have stood up for, because I thought that I was, oh, you're just making something out of nothing. And doing that over time does a lot psychologically. I am not a therapist. Again, PhD and not MD, but I do a lot in neuroscience, like really understanding how people acquire knowledge. And over time, that damages a lot of your brain, because then you start second guessing what your truth is. And I did that a lot for a lot of various different reasons. But one thing about getting older, I am older than I look. One thing about getting older is that I appreciate is the amount of I don't give a F anymore. Like, I just don't care. If I'm not normal, that's probably a good thing. Like, normal is highly overrated. To me now, I associate it to a lack of imagination if you're normal. But I will give you a practical example. Is I was at a stand-up this week, and there was this very awkward silence because the people that run the stand-up were late, and I was the next person in line. And you really should not put me in this line because I will say the randomest things. And someone hops on the call and they say, hey, and I answer in one of my ridiculous voices. And he was like, do I sound like that? And I'm like, no, I'm just being my usual weird. And I just call it out and we move on. And that is how it is these days. And I like that. I like the comfort of, I don't have to check with people right now to see if what I do is normal. I just accept it. And I'm not saying I'm there yet, like I'm on this higher level of existence. It's just, I find that I accept those parts of me more than I used to when I'm younger. But when things do blow up, I do still have the constructivist attitude of like, I got to construct my reality with external areas of validation. Like, still got to do that. I haven't outgrown that. I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's I feel like the being young thing is tough, right? I feel actually there's I don't know if this has made its way over the Pacific Ocean from us to you, but like they're going through the mechanics at the moment of a social media ban for everyone under the age of 16 in Australia at the moment, and I think it made me really like think about like how tough it must be to be a young person now with all that stuff going on. Especially when you reflect on like how difficult like being a person with any of these attributes and bits about you like they've been, and we all like you hopefully make it through and you have that balance, and like it becomes easier with age, like a lot of things. But yeah. Okay.
I do love the 0 F's given mantra. My friend recently, just as a quick anecdote, she knows like I sometimes could use more of that in my life, so she bought me this bracelet, which is actually in Morse code. So I could.
Oh my God! First of all, I love that. I will geek out on Morse code on you. I won't, but like I want to continue on with your story.
Yeah, no. So the bracelet is in Morse code. It's hard to see it, but it basically says 0 fucks given.
Oh.
And I'm like, every time I get upset at work, I'm just like rubbing it away. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm fine.
Don't worry about it. It's 0 fucks. Oh my God. I'm going to get one. Stealing that from your bestie.
I love it.
So many levels.
Let's get it from the team. The whole team, Alexis, will issue them with things. Now I'm going to know what Alexis is doing in meetings now, though. She's like,
why is she like, yeah, what's going on there? Yeah, she's saying something inside.
It reminds me actually that there's another good book called The No Arsehole Rule, which is very much on the same kind of like wavelength of things that I enjoyed. Leah's read this book. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Okay. Oh, the message is blocked by moderation policies when I type it in. Okay, go read The No Arsehole Rule. Let's see if the AI like renders things afterwards. Okay. Great. I'm keen to get in a couple more of our kind of questions from things. So we've got a quick fire one. So what one change would you love to see in how teams support mental health and neurodiversity? So quick fire answers. Let's go, Alexis. Like what's one little thing maybe you'd like to see change in some teams, maybe some around you?
Just more openness. I would love for people to start with like, this is what really pisses me off. This is what really like is a pet peeve, so that we don't step on each other. Let's encourage that.
Love it. I love that all of you are venting. Like they're all venting related kind of things. And Valerie, quick fire, quick fix.
So right now in the U.S., there's a lot of closing down of DEIR diversity programs. And right now, if you're even slightly associated to DEIR programs, you're kind of, I would love that to go away.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got a quick fire answer to my own question. I should have thought I had it. What were things there? I quite like the practice of the declaration thing some way. So like that kind of aggressive openness around things. I don't know how you make that, but it's yeah, I think that aggressive kind of get to know people thing being more standardized would be kind of good. Okay, so Alexis, number 5 is one that was principally prompted the AI via yours, but like we can hopefully all weigh in. So like you occupy like a high pressure leadership role. How do you tackle anxiety in that context around things?
Yeah, I mean, man, that's a multi-threaded response. So I think number one is just self-awareness. Like I just need to be self-aware in the first place. That is key, as it just shows a little bit of the emotional intelligence there. I think, but really, it's like practical strategies and strong support systems. So from like a practical strategy standpoint, I started, probably like during COVID, I was ready to like lose my mind, stuck in the house, 3 kids, just felt like the world was crashing down. And so I learned mindfulness, and mindfulness like really helped ground me and just helped me with stress related techniques. And then, another practical piece is I just need to run. Like I don't love necessarily having to run, but I love running. Kit knows this because every time I go to Australia or we're in the same country, we go for runs in the morning, and like it grounds me. So I do have to do things like that to just like physically get some of the mental stuff out of the way. But I mean, for me, a lot of managing the stress is just kind of like pretty practical, and just making sure that like I'm taking care of myself. There's the self-care is there, and that I'm aware of it. And if I at least I'm aware of it, then I don't judge myself so much for having it. It's just like I'm aware that it's there, and I'm just gonna let it be. And there's a saying that I really love is that it's like a Buddhist thing around the concept of impermanence, whereas like whatever you're feeling isn't impermanent, and it will change and it won't be there forever. And so I just try to remind myself of that as well, because that brings me back into the moment and back into the team and back and focused on like what we need to achieve as a team.
Love it. Very important. And Alexis and I do run, for 2 people who live on different continents, we run together fairly regularly. I definitely say exercise for me is like critical, and like I don't suffer from anxiety, but I think I can draw a direct correlation between the impact that my bipolarism has and how much exercise I'm doing around things. So being preemptive there, very true. And I guess, Valerie, it was an Alexis oriented question, but any thoughts on this, like high pressure roles and things that most of us occupy in some way versus these traits and things that
So I do a lot of public speaking as a creator. I do a lot of events, and as an introvert, it could be a little interesting. As someone with PTSD, it's also very interesting because sometimes when you're a public type figure, people like touching you. And that's always not a good idea when someone is military trained. Like, just randomly touch me in a public space. And I'm not saying see what happens, but I do have a reaction. So there are certain things that I do preemptively. Number one, I take medication and keeps the reaction levels lower. So I am not advocating or not advocating for medication, but medication works for me. So it is a chemical issue, and it just keeps me at a steady pace of nerve. So I don't have a very strong reaction to someone randomly grabbing me, and people do grab me. And there are different things that I do to ground myself in the moment right before I speak. So if I'm wearing closed-toed shoes, I'm wiggling my toes. If I'm in a virtual meeting and I'm about to present to 300 people, I turn everybody off. Literally, I'm looking at something completely different than everybody's faces. Right now, I'm seeing all of you, and I love you. And then doing the exercise where you trace a breathing exercise with the corners of your screen also helps when you know you're the one that's going to be up next speaking. So I have all a pre-tested toolkit that I run myself through, and it's so routine that I do it that it becomes second nature right before I do something big.
Really good. Open invite, Valerie, if you want to come and have a fight in Australia at any point. I'm always up for some companionship on the dojo floor.
Oh, 110%. Let's get the belts out. I got my gi. Let's make it happen.
Very good, very good. So I think we've got time for one more before we open the floor, and we'll have that university experience of no questions or loads of questions, or shares that are welcome as well with things. So the last question is a good one for practical things again. So how can hybrid or remote, in like Valerie's case, or largely remote, work support or hinder neurodivergent team members? So like, is this a good thing, a different thing? Is it a factor in helping kind of like teams around there with stuff? Anyone want to go first?
How about you?
Heck it. You're in the hot seat.
Good, and Tim's back as well. I open forward things. I think it's really good for building the space would be my thought around things. So relating it to what we were just saying, especially like that ability to factor in a cycle ride in the middle of my day or something, I think can be really useful. I also feel like when I compare like my pre-COVID kind of life of like in the office all the time around things there, I feel like the flexibility I can build into my workday now is far better for catering for my needs around things. And I actually like being in the Accenture Brisbane office. Weirdly, I'm not working with anyone there on a project though. So it's just like a space to have like people around and bump into the kitchen and having a 20-minute cycle ride back and forth, and then having some other humans around, because I'm an extrovert. I'm an anxious extrovert, I always say with things. I find really useful. So I think the hybrid or flexible like work model works really well for me. I feel tangibly like better catered for like since that shift around things. Yeah. But Valerie, Alexis, same, different? Valerie likes being away I imagine you're in an attic at the moment. It looks like it.
Oh, me, I live in an A-frame house. One of my multiple identities, I'm establishing, rebuilding this old A-frame house, preserving a little bit of history. But for me, I think the hybrid work environment does a very great thing for giving people voice and choice. It's really sad to see that companies that are mandating people's return to work, because when you give people voice and choice, it's very empowering. People get to pick what works for them. So if you are an office person, hey, go into the office. You want to escape the kids for a day, your dog barks too much. My baby is just sleeping on my lap right now, though. You could go into the office. You want to stay at home? And sometimes I really do. You just need to stay at home. I do a lot of documentation. I listen to a lot of content on a daily basis. And Friday is my day. I block that off. No one gets to bug me on a Friday, so I can just go through that. And having that flexibility really does something for us. But some neurodiverse conditions have various different impacts, whether you're in person and or virtual. So it's really good to educate yourself on what those are and where they manifest themselves best. So for example, if you have ADHD and you have 1,000 tabs open on a screen, your ability to focus on a meeting may not be as good. So you may want to close some of your tabs. And being forced, not to say that force, again, voice and choice is a good thing. Going into the office where you have less distractions during a meeting and you're really facing the people, your audience, with other things there, it's really great. So I think it's pro, but you have to really educate yourself on what works best.
Yeah, it's all that tailoring, isn't it? Yeah. Alexis, in your view?
No, I agree, and I think it is very like it is a personal thing. I have to make it a point to, because with Team Anywhere we can just be remote 24/7, and so I have to make it a point to not do that, because I find if I'm just remote 24/7, like I struggle to even shower during the day. It's like it'll be like, did I brush my teeth today? I'm like, we can't allow ourselves to get here. So, like I do need to make sure to be showing up from time to time, and I do get energy in person. It's just that once I leave the room full of people, I'm completely tired. But in the moment, I get all of the energy in the world. So, yeah, I have to make sure I don't index too heavily on remote, because I just feel like things get pretty native.
Yeah, really good tips for us all. Okay, I said we try and time box things to give a bit of space to everyone at the end. I think Tim makes jokes about the neurodiverse crowd taking over the chat very easily around things always, so we'll be careful here. If you don't want to unmute, I've opened the digital Q&A, and I think that Valerie, I voluntold you to manage the Q&A section, right? And no one argued with me. So I will hand over to you. How do you want to run things? Invite people in.
All right. I mean, whichever way, again, voice and choice. So whatever you're comfortable with, you could throw your questions in the chat. You can go off mute. Tell us about your experiences. Tell us, share with us something that we haven't gone through that you want to talk about. Or you could say, this has resonated with me, and we'll have just a moment of reflection. I have something in the chat about anyone practices regular journaling or self-reflection. I mean, it's like you read my mind on this reflection bit. Self-reflection or autoethnography. I'll throw that out to the group as a whole. This is M's nose. She wants to also say hi. So I do a lot of reflection. It's very interesting. I'll answer the own question is that we don't offer enough time for reflection in our workday. And we're often pressured to make decisions in the moment. And I am very intentional, if you work with me, of saying, I acknowledge that this happened, X, Y, and Z. I need some time to reflect on it. I will get back to you in 3 days. And I literally give myself 3 days to think about it. I know that can seem like a luxury to most people, but I find that the results are much better and worth it. And people, once they get into that routine, know that that's coming from me and it's coming from a good place and they're used to it. Kit, Alexis, how about you?
I'm terrible at making space for this kind of thing. I think I make up for it by just sharing stuff. Daniel's on Teams with me. He knows it's just a constant stream. Like it comes out as I think it rather than in any sort of sense of reflection.
Yeah, I recently, that resonates a lot what you said, Valerie, because I recently was doing a podcast. It was with like this famous rugby player. And like what resonated there was that we don't take enough time to grieve and we don't take enough time to celebrate. And so like part of being a high performant team is taking that time to reflect. And we don't need to take a year, but we need to take some time, and that's okay. Like I think if we allow ourselves and set that amount of time and we give ourselves that space, we're going to come out far more ahead than if we just kind of coast on, autopilot mode. And so I do like to journal. I also like to I do like to journal. I feel meditation also kind of it gives me a lot of self-reflection. I visually meditate. So for that, it helps a lot with self-reflection.
Can I ask a follow-up question about your journaling? Do you follow a journal prompt or is it just a free write? Not just, but is it a free write? Like what is your approach to journaling?
If that's for me, I just free write. There's another thing that I also started doing. It was there's a book like the 365 days of it was like it's a Buddhist concept, but there's these prompts as well. So I mostly just freeformed, and then I started with this prompting. It was I'm gonna have to look it up and get back to you what the exact name of it was, but it was about like stoicism. And so it was, the prompting also gave me more than I thought it would, because I just always stuck with freeform.
Yeah, I find that I am not the best journalist because I do so much writing for work that the second you tell me, I gotta write something for myself. But I do find that prompting helps me when I get stuck. Like I just need something to push me. Next question is from Tim. This is a great question. Should neurodiverse people meditate in different ways to neurotypical people? Daniel also has his question, and I will get to you in one moment. But first, anyone have any thoughts on that? On meditation for the neurodiverse? Kit, you want to share your thoughts on this one?
No, I've never got into it. It's a funny one. I feel like motion sport. I do feel like some of the exercise stuff that I do gets me in that sort of mind state around things, though. Like I definitely zone out while cycling, whilst being responsible, and that kind of things. And it does make me think, actually. So when I'm a Lego Serious Play facilitator, as some folks will have experienced, and we talk a lot about the flow state in that. And I feel like the flow state weirdly opposite side of the spectrum, but similar. It's like when you're in the zone and everything else goes away because you've got that one thing that's kind of going on. And I feel for me, that's very much in the same area. And I suspect that that's particularly friendly for my neurodiversity, especially not the meditation, but the flow state, kind of like focus on things as well.
I'm going to jump in and build on that for you and say, I think the neurodiverse need to also have the ability. And this also, the things that work for the neurodiverse also work for the neurotypical. It's just the one works for one and one works for the other, but the other one has to have it. Is giving yourself the ability to be also neurodiverse when it comes to meditation. So kids, meditation is this flow state. So find your flow state and exist within it. Some people are okay with sitting for long. I'm a big yogi. So like I can sit by myself and just stare into nothingness for end. If you ask someone who has ADHD to do that, and it's like painful for them, but they can get into a state of flow, which has the same mental impact as sitting and meditating. So find your state of flow is what I'm going to go with. But I want to save some time for Daniel. So Daniel, I turn it over to you. Can you go off mute and give us what are your thoughts?
I was going to ask as opposed to respond. But I wanted to ask in the context of this sort of session. I know that like Alexis had spoken about like Buddhism, and you guys had spoken about some of the spaces you come from. But I was wondering, in terms of like where like the inspiration you guys usually get from those sorts of mindfulness practices, whether it's role models in the workplace, whether it's ideological sort of things from certain places, where you guys draw into. I know Kit's mentioned some books as well. Like where do you guys kind of get that approach from people or from external sources?
I'm going to defer that one to Alexis.
Yeah, so something that worked really, really, really well for me was just like CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy. And so early on, it was always around, there was a lot around like mindfulness and meditation. And so I find that what helps the most there was just like guided and visualization. But I mean, it's different for everyone, right? So I don't know if that necessarily answers it, but to me, that's what worked the best, was just like what made me feel the most grounded. It took a lot of different things to try. But again, it's so personal.
Yeah. And for me, I'm a person who has always turned to education when I struggle. So I'm always, if something happens to me, I research it probably to death, which is why I do what I do in this world. And I never really gravitated towards gurus. So like people have their gurus that they're thought leaders that they go after. And I never really saw myself in any of them. So it was hard for me to resonate with them and then take in the feedback. Like you really have to be open to certain things. And to me, I resonated more with the written word. So I have books after books. Like I read a lot. I do audiobooks. If people think I'm always reading something written, no, there's a mixture in there. Those are the things that worked for me. How about you, Kit?
So I haven't read a physical book in like since my kids were born, so I'm a big audiobook fan, like too, as well. I think it's a balance of like the sort of self-help things and professional things. So I did therapy when like I had a very like my worst sort of episode of bipolar, probably when I was like 19 or 20, and I think seeking professional help is like a really important part of things for me. And like Valerie, so like I haven't been medicated, but like I would also be like very happy to like if I thought that would help me. And so I think it's a balance of like that sort of more kind of grounded, like practical, professional kind of help together with the inspiration and other things there. And I do like my books and podcasts for things there as well. Also just talking. Like I had no idea that this was an interesting space to Alexis until it came up in discussion a few months ago. And then I took a lot from that, and some follow-up things. So, it's a bit like you learn lots by teaching. I think you learn lots by talking to people about their experiences, those spaces. So I'd go with that combined with the kind of hardcore stuff.
Yeah, it gives a sense of belonging. So we got a good question from Swati in the app, the chat. If you use a mood tracking app, will you throw the name down if you find that it's good? I In 2020, I had a podcast for meditation in the workplace, and I was on a mission to find some good apps because everyone was getting funded to do all these apps, and I struggled to find one that was good. So if you have a good one, please share with everybody in the chat. I could tell you a bunch of negative experiences. If you want with that, that's horrible. Morgan has one on reflection, our workplace. Morgan, if you're here, you're welcome to go off chat and share, or go off mute to share this question.
I just wrote it down so I didn't forget, because that's how my brain works. At Easy Agile, we there's almost like an expectation that you'll take time to system to think, and it comes from this book that I haven't read because I do love reading, but like Kit, sometimes it's really hard to make time. But it's just around taking time to think. System 1 is fast thinking, system 2 is slow thinking. So that's made a really big difference to me at work and also in my personal life too. Like just being able to say, even to leadership, I'm not sure. Let me take time to system 2, and that's welcomed and expected. And yeah, it's a really awesome practice that we have.
I'm going to read this book. And when I say read, I'm going to audiobook this book.
Yeah, and let me know what it's like, because I haven't done it yet.
Yes,
I read this one, and it like helped tremendously frame out my thoughts and like where I need to be more strategic, where I need to be more tactical, high velocity thinking. Like it kind of ties into, I don't know if anyone knows the Amazon like decision making process with one-way door versus a two-way door. But like it was a really, really good book and a good framework. So I highly recommend it.
Is it unethical if I recommend this to my teammates that report to me? Like, is that wrong? I want to, though.
I always find it's when you're recommending it to your partner or spouse that the ethical thing comes up. Like around and like, it's like,
no,
I don't want to change you, darling. So here we go. Awesome. That's the end of our time box. So we're probably going to start losing people around things. So feel free to hang around if you don't have to go. But if you do have to go, we really appreciate you being along for the ride with us as well. I've included in the chat a final reminder that we aren't healthcare professionals. And if you'd like further support, there's some good links as well. And your favorite Google search or ChatGPT will give you some local contacts as well for you as well. Thank you firstly to all of you for giving your time. This is our first experiment. We'd love to see more of these things being run as part of the teamwork kind of area. Huge thanks from me to Alexis and Valerie for volunteering to get going with things as well, and it'll be really interesting to see where it goes.
No, I love you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for having us, Kit, and thank you, Alexis and Kit, for supporting such an event. I hope that more comes up, and I will support and repost and share some love. I think with better lead time, I'll be able to do that a bit more. But we wanted to get in at Mental Health Awareness Month. That was really important to us. So thank you all for hanging in with us and sharing your experiences. They mean a lot to me. I hope we continue to build this community.
Yeah, and I think Tim and team will be taking the next term, right, Tim? We're going to be seeing you run something in the next few months.
Sounds like I've been volunteered, huh?
Hey, you said yes. You said yes before, not just on this call. Okay, awesome. Right. Have an awesome Friday, everyone. Or have an awesome tomorrow for the Americans. Speak soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.